Good afternoon, YouTube, and welcome back once again to Fat Cat Collections. And today I just want to do another discussion video talking about watch hypocrites. Guys, and the reason I'm going to try to keep this one pretty short. You guys know I love to ramble on and do these rant videos, but you know, it's important that you guys are aware, especially if you guys, are looking into maybe getting involved in a watch. If you're a guy who maybe just, I have buddies who, they don't really wear watches, but being around me and seeing all the watches I wear, sometimes I think about getting one. I was having a discussion with one of my buddies today just about the different brands and just explain to, again, my opinions about a lot of these watches. And I watched a few other guys on YouTube talk about, why would you spend a lot of money on a watch when there's so many great watches out there. They're homage watches or even fake watches. If you absolutely have to have, the brand name and you want to, I guess, put out a certain image. I mean, it's not my style, but I mean, to each your own. But one thing you're going to get when it comes to the watch, and it's funny too, because there's a lot of dudes out there who are like not even watch review guys who really have just a couple in their collection, and next thing you know, they're starting to try to review watches on YouTube. Now remember guys, everybody you see on YouTube is just really giving you their opinion. And just like me, I'm not an expert. The people when I think of watch experts are really the guys who are repairing watches and fixing watches. And there's a few guys on YouTube that I do go to when I want like solid information about how it works. But generally their channels are more about talking about the reasons on why maybe one movement might be better and actual legitimate reasons. Not the fact that, it's a different brand than they like or it's a different style than they like. And just like me, and I'll throw myself in that category too, that, everything that I say when it comes to watches is solely my opinion. And there's lots of people who agree with me and lots of people who don't. Ultimately, at the end of the day, anybody who wears a watch, I think it's great, no matter what your budget is, no matter what your style is. If you're wearing a watch, I think it's great. And I feel like that everybody can be part of this fun hobby of watch collecting. I've said it in many videos. And again, you're always have the guys who are like, oh, watches are an investment. Rolex is an investment. Watches are not an investment, okay? Yes, you could possibly get lucky. You could possibly make the best educated choice. Maybe get a watch you can either sell for what you paid, maybe a little bit more, maybe not lose a lot of money, but these are not investments. They really aren't. And it's just like if you want to invest in watches, it's the same as investing in the stock market. There are no guarantees with anything. It's all a gamble. Now, again, your money, do what you want to do, invest it how you want to invest it. I would never invest in watches. This is a hobby for me, and I don't take it too seriously. There's lots of watches in my collection. I'll continue to buy watches. Very few will I sell. Usually when I sell a watch, it's because it absolutely gets no wrist time, and it's in mint condition. And really, that there is a difference when it comes to watches like an Invicta and a Rolex. Of course there are. When you have a used Rolex, you have knuckleheads out there, and you guys have heard me mention them before, who will actually pay thousands of dollars for a Franken Rolex. I mean, that's a spare parts watch, not original crystal. I mean, you can't really talk about investing in things, I'm get my money back. Not me. I know if I was looking for a watch, a previously owned watch, I don't want a Franken Rolex. I don't want something that's been pieced together, not original band, not original crystal. I would not want that because it does hurt resale value if you ever have to get rid of it. And let's face it, when people get rid of things like that, it's usually because they've come into hard times and have to sell it, I know there are people like me who I have a huge collection. So sometimes when I sell a watch, it's mainly because I got it at a time when maybe the price was right on that watch. And then as I've had it for a while, I got something I like more, maybe for a better deal, and I'm like, all right, I just don't wear this one much anymore, so let me try to sell it. Now, yeah, Invicta, you're going to have a harder time selling certain Invictas for what you paid for them, but that's not across the board, and just like that's not across the board with Rolex. I mean, you can buy a Rolex. It doesn't mean in 3 years that you're going to be able to get your money back. That's with anything. There is a risk with everything that you buy. I have Invicta watches that I could sell right now that I could sell for more than I paid. So again, it really comes down to demand, supply and demand. If there's a nice Invicta that was really popular, it sold out, you're going to sell for more. Perfect example is there's a guy who posted on my Invicta Addiction Facebook group the other day, and he posted a black with silver Subaquanoma 5. And I forget the reference number or the model number. the reference number. It's a model number, right? Anyway, the model number of this Invicta. And so I have a couple Subaquanoma 5s. I love the Subaquanoma 5. It is just a killer watch. And I have it in silver, COSC, certified chronograph. It is a quartz. Yes, you can have COSC certified quartz, yes. And a gold one. But this one here was on Yellow Tag event for about $138. And I hemmed and hawed for a while. And unfortunately, I didn't get it. And it's all black with a silver bezel. Super clean. The price was super cheap. And I almost got it. And now I'm kicking myself in the ass because this guy posted, and he posted pictures showing the side. And I didn't realize that some of the center links were silver. So you have a really nice two-tone look. The price was killer. The watch is awesome. You snooze, you lose. That watch now, you're going to pay about $200 for it on eBay. So again, you're not going to find it anywhere for less than about $180, $200. Again, you could make money on it, right? If I would have had one, held on to it, I could have sold a few of them. Again, do you want to go through all that to make 50 bucks? I don't know, 50 bucks is pretty good, you know? So it really just comes down to supply and demand. And yeah, you can, you know, there's lots of people who buy from Yellow Tag event, try to flip it. It just really comes down to, again, timing is everything, a lot of stuff, and supply and demand. So with that being said, I just want to also mention the problem with like the watch community is that guys don't take the stance that I take. Now, I can be nasty, of course, but I'm really pretty nice when it comes to all watches. You know, there's no watches I hate. There's no watches I consider a shitter. There's affordable watches, and there's not affordable watches, right? And there's everything else in between. You know, a Jacob & Company for $1 million, I'm never going to have that. I have no desire to ever own that, right? Even if I was filthy rich, there's so many other things I could do with to benefit other people's lives and spend that on a watch. To each their own, right? But everything else in between is somewhat affordable when it comes to, like, you know, your Rolex. That's an affordable watch. You can buy a watch. Do I think that that's overpriced? Absolutely, right? And so, again, I think that there's a watch out there for everyone. And I think a lot of guys, and there's a lot of guys who comment on the channel who will mention, yeah, I have a Rolex, I have an Omega, have an Invicta. My Invictas get the attention, my Invictas get the compliments, not so much on the Rolex and Omegas. Now, everybody's got a different story. I'm not saying that's the way it is across the board. I'm just saying that Invicta watches get noticed. Invicta watches are of great quality. And the real differences you're going to find, again, are really subtle differences. The problem that I have is with a lot of these guys, like the BSing time teller and the It's Constipated, and guys like that. And there's a lot of good guys, like Guy from Bluefish, I think Bluefish Watches, great YouTuber. I mean, the guy is straight up like about the facts. He gives his opinion, but he's not a dick about it. He's not an asshole, you know. He's not trying to make somebody feel like they made a bad decision. Now, remember when buying these different watches, right? And remember, guys, when I argue for Invicta, I'm not taking insult by these idiots out there. I could care less if the entire world was like, why would you buy that watch? That's ugly. It doesn't really matter. My issue with people like that is the fact that they just don't know when to keep their mouths shut. People like that just have to try to poke fun at other people because there's something lacking inside, right? The other day I was actually watching the Time Teller's channel. He was doing a live feed, and there was a dude in there who mentioned a few things. And I was laughing, you know. I can't comment on there because he's got me blocked, right? But I thought it was really interesting that it kind of, you could tell in the video, he was obviously preoccupied, and he started preaching about how, like, you know, this is just a group for fun, and there's always going to be somebody trying to ruin it. And then, of course, then he started, like, praying for the guy who was commenting, right? It's like, dude, maybe people wouldn't necessarily, you know, react that way towards you if you weren't such a prick, you know? I mean, by coming in trying to make fun of the Invicta wearer, by making fun of watches he doesn't like. But the thing about it is, like, a guy like that likes watches like what's one of the brands he really likes? Spinnaker. I think it's Spinnaker. There's a few other brands I've mentioned before. And, you know, there's brands out there that I know for a fact the quality is on par with any pro diver, with most of the 99% of the Invictas out there. You know, but yet the Invicta watches will never get the recognition. And it's really odd to me why somebody who likes watches that, like, Casio is not a luxury brand, but But a guy like that will like rant and rave about how great the Casio is. But he just never misses a trick. He did a review the other day, and it was about, it's very hypocritical for somebody to not like somebody. Oh, somebody's coming in bothering our group. We're just trying to have a nice fun and watch discussion, but yet don't say anything against anything he likes, right? Because if you do, then of course, you're the bad guy. He's praying for you. It's like, don't throw stones if you don't live in glass houses. People like that should learn to be respectful of what other people like too. People who wear Invicta watches are nice people too. Just because you may not like the Invicta brand doesn't mean you have to be a prick about it. Doesn't mean you have to try to insult people who wear the brand. And again, always wear what you like, and then ultimately it doesn't matter. If, like I said, if the entire world said Invicta watches are crap and you shouldn't wear them and they make fun of them, the thing is that people, if you don't like something, you just don't have to buy it. You don't have to try to insult other people who wear it. You don't have to insult their decision to buy. And the thing is, I have so many watch, and the problem is that a lot of these guys, when people are, YouTube is such a shopping network now, that people who are looking to buy something will go to YouTube, I do it too, and say, hey, you know what, I wonder what kind of experience this guy's had. Before I got this watch, my Burst cigar, right? I went to YouTube. Let me see what other people have to say about it. If you have a few people saying, this watch is pretty good quality. Yeah, I'm like, all right, well, let me give that a try. I like the watch. I think I'm going to have some good luck with it. Well, what if everybody was like, oh, it's a piece of crap, garbage, cheap, I would have missed out on a really great watch. And so you have to be careful with influencers. And I encourage you also, if you watch me, to always be careful. I mean, I'm always going to give you the 100% honest opinion. And I'm always going to give you, I'm not going to lie in order to get you to see it my way. If you like a Rolex, if you prefer diesel watches over Invicta, I know that based on what people like, I know that if you like a diesel watch, you're probably going to like Invicta. I know that if you're not an Invicta fan, you're probably not going to like diesel or Aragon, But all these companies make a watch that's smaller. So a lot of times when it comes to these big watches, they just don't like the size. And it's probably the same type of attitude when guys like that see maybe a guy, maybe a donk on some 26s, they're already judging. They're already like talking shit. And really, who cares? It's not your car. It's not your watch. Why are you trying to prevent or try to dissuade other people from buying it and being happy and being part of this fun hobby of watch collecting? There's so many cool watches out there, whether you like Casio, Seiko, Rolex, Invicta, whatever you like, there's something for everybody. But the problem is, again, is when people like that, they get to what they think they're graduating to some kind of level, now it's like, okay, well, let me shit on every other watch brand because now I don't wear those. I wear a Rolex. But it's funny that like guys like the Time Teller will turn around. He'll make excuses for a gigantic 50 millimeter plus Invicta Mudmaster or Casio Mudmaster. But yet, if you're wearing an Invicta watch, I think at one point the idiot referred to them as being in a Happy Meal. What are we making, toys or watches? It's like, man, most of the Rolex watches out there people label those watches as like the Kermit, the Batman. But yet Invicta gets insulted for because they make Mickey Mouse watches and Garfield watches and things that, the thing about that is that they make these inspired watches because it brings people into watch collecting. It's smart business. When you make a watch that's themed, people who are like, I'm not a watch guy, but I love Mickey Mouse. Next thing you know, you make a Mickey Mouse watch and they want to buy one. So it's really smart to open up the world of watches to all different kinds of people. Look at the sports watches. All this is good business. Now, again, if you were a watch snob and you're like, oh, well, a watch is a significant piece of horology, give me a break. All these things do is tell time. And you can do that very accurately for 99 cents for a fake G-Shock on YouTube, on eBay. So a 99-cent watch will tell time just as good as any Rolex ever made, if not better. So, it always comes down to some excuse on why people have to be nasty to other people, Oh, well, it's just, they're cheap. Invicta watches are not cheap. They're affordable, but they're not garbage. And again, of all the watches I have in my collection, I'll put the quality of my Invicta watches right up with watches that cost $2,000. I mean, easily, no problem, hands down. I'll put Invicta up against Bulova, Citizen, Movado, Casio, Seiko. And there's guys out there, guys who, do get a lot of credibility in the watch collecting community. Guys who are I think they really kind of take that They're very level-headed when it comes to responding to people. They're very, they don't get involved in the back and forth. You know, I am not one of those guys. You know, and more power to you. But, you know, I have to defend a brand who you know, you could take the high road and be like, oh, thanks for commenting, like what you like, have a nice day. But I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to let people come out and insult the brand and try to diss a brand and dissuade people from buying it. Let me tell you, there's lots of watch review guys. Look, check them out, who have reviewed Invicta watches and said that the Invicta is better than a lot of the Seikos they've seen. You know, just because it's a Seiko doesn't mean it's some different level. And again, you have so much snobbery when it comes to watches. And snobbery is just a term for anybody who just thinks they're above other brands, you know. What you have is a lot of hating. I mean, a lot of hating, a lot of snobbery, and people who really just make things up to really, and lie, to basically benefit their argument, to support their argument where there really isn't any. Anybody who's owned an Invicta watch and other brands will tell you, man, pretty decent quality, pretty amazing quality for what you get. Yeah, I know if you compare an Invicta Pro Diver with a Rolex Submariner, that, you know, probably the crown's a lot smoother, right? There is attention to detail you're not going to get on a $99 watch. That's common sense. That should be a given. That shouldn't be something that you should even, I mean, I can't imagine somebody being that picky when it comes to a watch's quality and construction that you suddenly think that any watch doesn't have that is somehow a shitter. Like, that's not the case at all. Watches are different. Watches are there's different prices. Guys, a lot of guys who wear a Patek will tell you a Rolex is a piece of shit. So there's always somebody with an opinion who has to knock another brand. I'm here to tell you that all watches are cool. I like them all. And just because one watch is, you know, $100,000, that doesn't mean it's $100,000 better than a $99 watch. It's just different. There's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes that you don't know about. And one of those big things is called markup. And for anybody who thinks that Rolex somehow it costs $4,000 to produce a Rolex, you should have your head examined. Seriously. Rolex watches do not, I don't know what they cost, but they don't cost $4,000 to manufacture. Right off the bat, with Rolex dealers, if you look online and see what other people have said about these things, what they know is that the markup to the ADs is about 40%. Like, that's a pretty big markup, you know. In car audio, when I used to sell, car audio was 50%. That's a pretty big markup. That was one of the heavily marked up items in the store. What you get with other brands like Invicta and Aragon is that they deal in volume. They don't make a lot on each watch, even though their MSRP is ridiculous. We all know it, right? Let's just let it go. Let's just stop beating that horse, right? We know the MSRP. Everybody does it. Invicta does it to the extreme. We know, but if you're an idiot, you're going to pay that. Honestly, if you pay MSRP, and I'm sorry to insult you, but if you paid MSRP, very foolish move, because a quick 5-second search on your phone that everybody carries, everybody and their brother has one nowadays, go out in society, people get their heads buried, couples, husband and wife out having dinner, not talking, staring at their phone, you should be able to quickly just search and say, oh, yep, that watch is nowhere near that. You know, I wish Invicta didn't do it. I get it. I'm with you. I wish brands didn't do it. Cars do it. Everybody does it. There's always an MSRP, a manufacturer suggested retail price, and then there's the real cost. Now, one brand that does do that and then rips people off even more is Rolex. Supply and demand. Rolex and a lot of their models can get more than MSRP. They're hot. What can you say? They're hot watches. I'll never understand the fascination. Just like this watch I wore the other day. I went into Walmart, my new Burst cigar. Again, this is kind of like, I'd say, a homage to a Submariner, but I think the rainbow colored bezel, the crystal bezel on this one here is, I think, on the Daytona. And they make a Daytona homage, but I didn't want the cluttered dial with the chronograph. I prefer just basic clean. This was great, 86 bucks, and I was helping out, I was bagging up the groceries, and she's like, oh, thanks. She's like, oh, is that a Rolex? And it's like, yeah, it's a Rolex. No, it's not, but, like, seriously? I mean, she was probably about maybe 3 feet from me, 2 feet, and so the average person is going to look at this watch and think it's a Rolex, right? Anybody who knows, right? Anybody who's I won't even say a watch connoisseur. People are going to look at this from a distance and think it could be a Rolex. But here's the thing with Rolex. You have to, I was telling my argument with my buddy today was like, you know, you have to kind of buy what fits your lifestyle. When people see a guy wearing a Rolex, now I know that this isn't a set stone hard rule, right? But when it's human nature that if you see a guy wearing a Rolex and you know, he's walking along and he's, oh man, Rolex, all right, look what he does. That's like your first thing. What does he do? That's an expensive watch. But then when you see him get into like an older 20-year-old car, and nothing wrong with 20-year-old cars. My cars are all older. I love them. They're my classics. But make sure this lady didn't park on the grass. There you go. Check it. But anyway, you know, sorry, lost my train of thought. I digress. So, getting back to it, what was I saying? So, basically, when I see a guy wearing a Rolex and he's getting into a 20-year-old car, I'm like, all right, well, he either doesn't care about cars, right, at all, and he obviously doesn't care, and he's got a lot of money, which it could be a possibility. You know, just because somebody drives an older car doesn't mean that the Rolex is not real. But most people, when they look at a guy wearing a Rolex watch and they see that the car doesn't match, because let's face it, a Rolex watch is kind of like, it's a luxury item. It's something that you are really proud of. It's something that you want people to know you spent a lot of money. You didn't buy a Rolex because it's a reliable watch. You bought a Rolex because of that recognition. Because if you want a reliable watch, you don't have to buy a Rolex. There are so many watches out there that are super reliable, that tell super accurate time, that are far less than a Rolex. Why do people buy it? It's the status. And I don't really care who you are or what you say to try to convince me otherwise. If you buy a Rolex, you are mainly buying that watch because of that name recognition. Because it's not the most accurate watch in the world. It's not the best value. You can get, you get a Omega for like what, $2,000 maybe. That's far more accurate. There's lots of options out there. So it can't be accuracy. Looks, it's not really. I mean, it's pretty basic, right? So why? Again, we can't say quality because there's other brands out there like Omega. The quality's just as good, right? So what is it? It's really the name. It's the recognition. So if you're the kind of guy who bought a Rolex, and you want people to notice. So a guy who would buy just like a car that's pretty basic, doesn't really care about the car, most likely wouldn't buy a Rolex watch, right? Guys like me who are kind of flashy are more the type who would buy a Rolex watch. Now me, I never would because they're just not my style. Again, not saying I don't like it. It's not a bad looking watch, but I don't like the price for what you get for the style. And honestly, it doesn't really matter what the cost of watches are. There's very few watches out there that I look at and I say, man, oh man, if I was really well off, I'd get. Some of them are like, honestly, black iced out Breitlings. The kind of over-the-top gaudy stuff. Jacob & Company watches are amazing with all the gemstones. Those watches I can kind of rationalize more. But the other watches out there, I just personally would never spend the money on that. They just don't do enough for me to warrant the cost. And that's just kind of how I feel about watch collecting. I have my sweet spot up to 300. Anything over that, I'm like, eh. And especially with the Yellow Tag event, these sales are so good. I kind of wait until I see one that comes out that I like and I add to my collection. I never really get too hot about one particular watch. I see it, it's good value, let me get it. So that's been it, guys. I appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to me rant. Drop a comment, let me know what you think about what I said, and you guys have a great evening. Take care.